We're still talking about comic book characters, but we brought a few friends to help us out. So let's take a walk to the Geek Shop. Okay, welcome to another episode of Geek Shop. Joining me again today is Chris. Chris, say hi.
Hi, Chris.
And we have two other guests today. Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Derek Barton. I've been here at the Geek Shop more than a few Saturday mornings.
My name is Mark Feltham. I'm part of Scribbles Arts and, put out and draw comics for Tic Tac Tom.
So, Chris, what are we talking about?
So this is like a part 2 of an episode. Chetan and myself had this conversation in the last episode, which you guys haven't seen yet, but now you get to be a part of it, which is kind of fun. Ooh. But the episode we just talked about our favorite comic book characters and maybe how they influenced our comic book creation as well. So we just thought we'd get some more sort of creators and comic book fans to talk about what's your favorite comic book character? That's the first question. So either one of you want to chime in on that?
All right, Mark, would you like to go first since you're the new kid on the block?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, a lot of my influences actually come out from the 90s. Some of the books I used to enjoy is Witchblade, and I have to say I've been reading Witchblade on and off for years, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, huge fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, all part of my childhood growing up, so those are some of my biggest inspirations.
So I have a question then about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and this is probably only at TMNT.
Sure.
So your issue 1, which version is it? Which printing is your issue 1 of TMNT? Do you have one? Which printing?
I have a third printing, unfortunately.
No, that's
but
okay.
It is a. But I have to tell you, it's a 9.6. Okay. So, that's my pride and joy. But I bought that at a show for $25 back in 2001, and the value's actually gone up quite a bit. So
that's like the secret question that all Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans have is your issue 1, what printing is it? And it's because that's only a question that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans will know, Yeah.
Okay, I would not know. I knew there was multiple printings, but I never knew that people were that,
Fanatic? Yeah, is the word I'd use. Yeah.
So Derek, how about yourself? What's your favorite comic book? What's your favorite comic book character? What do you
my favorite comic book character is the Savage Dragon. It's another one of those Image books, but it's the one that I kind of kept up with when every other one kind of fell off or I dropped off. And I'm still reading it. Actually starting to get they're starting to do their ultimate hardcover collections, which are reprinting the earlier issues, coming with complete sketchbooks and processes on how doing the book was back in those days. So that's been kind of fun to revisit as I'm actively going to the comic shop and buying new issues and then getting those old reprint hardcovers.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, the early artwork for that is gone because it was destroyed in a fire, right? So, I wonder what they're reproducing off of.
Actually, no, the fire didn't wreck the dragon stuff. I know the fire you're talking about. That was at the tail end of his Marvel Spider-Man run. So, a lot of...
Okay.
So, it was a lot of the stuff before Dragon. A lot of his original stuff, the stuff he made as a, Dragon, indie comicsy, self-made when he was a kid. The Dragon stuff that he had for... Graphic Fantasy magazine in the 80s the first time around, all that stuff and all of his professional stuff at that point was destroyed, but I believe some of the Spider-Man comics he was working on near that era and the Dragon stuff going forward, that did survive.
Okay.
Wow.
Because yeah, it was. But it's basically, I mean, he had like the biggest nightmare situation I think any of us have. Is imagine your studio goes up in
Oh
flames
my
and
God!
all your original
Like,
art. It's
the
gone.
man's home was
Well,
just.
I was debating. Yeah, no, that I can't imagine that happening.
Yeah, that I didn't even know that actually
Oh my God!
happened.
And
Yeah.
he was still.
Yeah.
I had
And
no
he was
idea.
still
No
putting out
idea.
the like this happened in real time during his last Spider-Man arc at Marvel, so it didn't cause a deadline hiccup, but I remember a few issues of that story. Half the story was like a backup story, so Marvel was good by accommodating that. And it didn't take him much to catch up. But I can only imagine you don't have a home, you're in a hotel, and you're still working on deadline now. Chetan, this was my first year working with Chetan. I was already late on my deadline story, and then I had a kitchen flood that poured into my
Oh, yes,
poured
yes.
into my studio, wrecked
Yes.
all the pages I was working on, and and it was just a little kitchen flood. Like I still was able to keep my home intact, and I still had rooms in my house to work. So I was redrawing my first TikTok Tom story on my daughter's old Sophia the First fold-out table in the living room, because dealing with the insurance company, there's a lot of hurry up and wait. There'll be days that they'd be all gung-ho, like pulling out furniture or whatever that was deemed a write-off, and then you wouldn't hear from them and they'd clean up, but then you wouldn't hear from them for a few days at a time, and then the next time, now they're putting together a room, kind of stop at a midway point, stop for X amount of days, and then when you think you're safe to put furniture in, nope, we got more drywall to do. So and
That's crazy.
Wow.
it was a bit of an inconvenience, and it'd be enough to set a lot of people off. But there's Larson, no house at all, just kind of in the hotel room, just grinding it all out still.
See, that I can't imagine. I mean, I've been debating about getting, because I have an iMac, I was debating about getting Apple's iCloud storage. And, I mean, I have the basic version of it, but I was thinking of my, my desktop, to store all of it onto iCloud, and thinking, you know what, would that be a safer way to protect some of my, at least digital files?
It
Yeah.
might be
That's
a good idea. I have the Apple One plan myself for the family, which has 2 terabytes of cloud storage.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
But it
I think that comes with it though,
yes,
doesn't it, Derek? I have the Apple one as well.
but it also comes with like their Apple One TV streaming, their Apple Music, Apple Games. Like it's part of a whole.
Oh yeah. No, you get a whole bundle. All my kids have it because they each have an iPhone, and everything in my house is Apple.
So I think what the
like
phones and
Apple
stuff, I think you
phones.
get the basic plan, but you could get a higher storage and
Yeah,
different
I
tiers
think,
plan.
Yeah, you can get just
Yeah.
storage. I think what it was with me is I was interested in storage and maybe music, and I'm trying to remember one other thing, but by the time I did the math on just getting those 2 or 3 things, the Apple One package that had those things and a lot of extra stuff was either like in a $2 difference. Like it was enough of a difference to be like, you know what, screw it, maybe I'll just do this whole thing.
To me justify it.
Yeah, like if I'm
Yeah.
But
going to be
imagine if losing all your, well, imagine like Larson losing all your artwork and all your files and stuff like that. What would you do?
I can't even fathom.
Yeah.
I mean, mind you,
I
if
don't know,
he's
I'd
working
fall-
for
I'd
a
fall
professional
apart.
company, they might have, saying digital files saved
or
at the offices. So something at least.
Although you think companies are infallible like that, but then there's always the story of Toy Story 2, I think it was. And it was,
yes, they erased all
they-
of that. Yeah.
So they erased an entire movie, and the only reason it survived is there was one of the editors working on it was on maternity leave, and she was at home, and so she had the files, the editing files at home, And so she was still editing it, and so they basically called her up and like, "Are your files okay?" And she's like, "Yeah." And it's like, "You have the only copy of the movie in existence."
Yeah, that I was.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I remember
that. That's crazy.
I remember reading
they
that
had a
story,
glitch
and I'm
on their
going, "Yeah,
systems.
wow."
Yes.
Oh my goodness!
So I worked in animation before this, and we had like triple backups of everything, and so that's what I do myself. Like I have a backup drive that I update every month, and I have the last 2 months worth. Like every 2 months, I slot it there, so I can go 2 months back in history. So if something wipes out everything.
I do the same thing because, I hate to say it, I'm not worried about my artwork. I'm worried about my kids' photos and stuff I have on my computer, and going, you know what? If I lose them, that's the only files I have, and I have 2 extra hard drives with the same files on it.
Yeah, that's how I do. And I keep mine in a safe. So like something happens in my house, like like an earthquake. And then notionally the safe can keep it pretty strong. Like these things are fireproof and everything like that. So my backup drive is in a safe, and then I have the drive that I work off of too, and that's just next to my computer. And if something happened like a fire, I wouldn't grab my computer. I would grab my drive, and then it's smaller and easier to carry. So. Yeah, so we got way off track, but that was an awesome off track.
No,
just because that is something that I think all artists deal with.
Oh yeah, no, I keep an external hard drive. Like, the next step I think for me is going to be like you said, a fireproof safe.
It's a pretty good thing. I mean, it's great for other documents as well. But it's just to know that your drive is sort of in a fireproof safe is a little bit of peace of mind when you're doing
That's
it.
That's it. So now going back to what we were talking about,
idea.
Mark, question for you: Witchblade?
Yeah, sure.
Are you you're a Mark Silvestri fan or the later stuff?
love. I prefer the early stuff. I'm Top Cow, like anything Top Cow, because they were so art heavy. I was big into like Mark Silvestri, Michael Turner, David Finch.
Oh yes, David Finch started on that. I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, like all the legend guys that were built up from Marvel later in the days all started at Top Cow, and I back in the day, aside from mostly just Witchblade, I did have some of the early runs on Darkness and Cyberforce. Yeah.
Oh, nice, nice.
But Michael Turner was a huge influence on my own artwork, so him and Mark, especially Mark Silvestri. Yeah,
okay. That's interesting because I have comic books that I like to read that don't influence my artwork whatsoever. I just love reading them, and then I have comic books that I look at and go like, this is exactly, this speaks to me. So it's interesting that,
and that's. Yeah, that's where the Turtles actually come in. I enjoyed the Turtles for my childhood, right? And then I go over to Witchblade for more of a like superhero comic book feed, right? So, yeah, or I guess it's more of a supernatural book. But I mean, I've been reading Witchblade since high school, so I didn't start picking up Turtles until I was going into college.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It's more of that style of book, if you think about it. Like Turtles, you have to be a certain age. Because it's weird, though, how it turned into like a child thing. Like, it went from being...
Yes, and then going right into a full-fledged comic. And to be honest with you, like I grew up with all the 90s toys and all the nostalgia, but I didn't actually start reading the comics until I found out more about where the Turtles came from. And then when they said it was like super dark and super bloody, I had to check it out for myself. And when I did, I fell in love with it. So I was just like, oh my God, this is a whole different childhood here, right? So,
although Image started publishing more sort of stuff, like I know they had Simon Beasley doing some Turtle stuff later on, and like some of the more dark. Yeah, Beasley did is it a Raphael series? I want to say.
Yeah, it was a Raphael Casey Jones miniseries.
So.
It was called Body Count.
So they sort of went back
it was dark.
Yeah, and it's,
that was actually done by Image. Actually, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
You were saying exactly what I'm going to say. So as long as it gets out there.
Yeah. So Yeah, it was a 4-issue miniseries written by Kevin Eastman, and illustrate all the art was done
Oh
by Simon
wow.
Bisley, and it was a
Okay.
beautiful
Yeah.
comic. It was dark, though.
It's very dark.
but
No, but it's funny
it's-
because Turtles is one of those what do you call it properties that you have to draw the line on where do you go really kid friendly like Turtles Adventures and things like that, or do you go dark? And hate to say it, you try and do both, but in comic wise, you have fans who like the older stuff that want the darker stuff.
dark and
Yeah.
gritty. But the great thing about Turtles is that it's so diverse that you have so many different styles of like one of my favorite artists, current artists now, Matteo Santaluco, who's like the main guy that you see on all the box designs for the toys and the action figures and the posters. He's considered like the I guess the new age Mark Silvestri back in the day for Top Cow, right? So he brings a certain volume of artwork that fans go nuts over. So really, it really depends. Like obviously, everyone will gravitate towards the Laird
Yes.
Eastman because that's where it all started, right? So, but I think one of the two. I think Laird is the one that doesn't draw as much anymore.
I tend to like when if I'm doing a doodle, I will often draw the turtles only because there are so many styles that you can put them in that work, and so
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where if I just want to play around with styles, I can draw a turtle and have a good time.
Exactly. You can do it mean, or you can do
I've
it kind of
never
cartoon.
drawn
It's
I've
fun.
never drawn a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I'm going to try that now.
You should.
Yeah, I've never done that. Yeah.
It's so much fun.
It is so much fun, and you got to decide whether you want to make the bandanas multiple colors or just red.
Sure. What were some of the books you guys grew up reading?
Chris, you want to take it first?
No, I think you should go first, considering there's a giant advertisement
Okay.
for yours behind you.
Mine, I grew up reading Superman comics, watching Superman cartoons, and Superman and Flash, I would say, are my go-to characters. Now, if you want to give me a third option for another company, it would be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed the Spider-Man mask.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So for
Chris,
me,
your turn.
So for me, the comic book character that brought me into comic books was actually Gru. But like sort of,
Oh, Sergio Arganis. Oh, I love
I
his
love
art.
his stuff. It's amazing. And so that was the one that brought me in. But like sort of my standard sort of big characters tend to be Batman or Spider-Man, particularly in the 70s, 60s, and 70s when the stories were like one and done issues where they'd have a villain, they'd fight.
Yes.
Then that would be it, and things would go back to normal. So before the big soap opera stuff started, really, particularly in Superman, but and Batman, I tend to really like when you talk like Frank Miller stuff and all that, like a lot of changes in comic books, and for good, or, better or worse, depending on your opinion. I liked the gritty times because that was perfect for my teenage angst at the time when it happened. But I tend to find that I really found that Batman was a great character to sort of change the industry a little bit in that respect. So, and he's a good guide for the industry too. Like if you look at like Bob Kane, he was creating this sort of really goofy Batman, or like the early Batman was sort of when comic book characters were goofy, and then the characters Batman would be the sign of change as things arced and moved in the industry. And so I always thought he was an interesting character that way because you can always he's almost the canary telling you where comic book industry is going to based on how Batman is being done at that particular moment. So. For better or for
That's
worse.
an interesting point, and you're right. Yeah, and you're right about that.
It's Superman sort of always stalwart, like he's always sort of, and I'm actually not a huge Superman fan. I like Superman. I even have I have Superman t-shirts and everything, but I find sometimes you have to be a really good writer to be able to write Superman stories because he's almost invincible except for this really rare rock that almost nobody can get. And so it's sort of like, how do you make this, how do you put any stakes in that? And so I tend to find that there are a lot of boring Superman stories out there, but Batman I always like because he's human, but he also has one of the best rogues galleries I think in comic book history. So
Oh yes.
I don't know. There's just something about DC Universe that just is just so aged out, but yet so interesting compared to the Marvel Universe. That's just
Yep.
personal opinion, though.
Yeah,
no, go for it.
I was gonna say I can definitely see that. You know, it depends. Like we have this discussion on this podcast many times about X-Men and the Chris Claremont writing, and sort of like, can you get into Chris Claremont? You know, he's extremely verbose in his half the time it's half text and half pictures. But then the other thing too, it tends to be like you have to like jump in and then you have to read like 5 issues before you even know what's going on. And I found a lot of Marvel, except for Spider-Man, again, in those time periods, but a lot of Marvel tends to be kind of soap opera. And so it's like one of those things
and
hard to
you're
get
right
into,
about that.
you know.
Yeah, there's just some. I'm more of a DC head than I am a Marvel.
Yeah.
Now,
Marvel has their.
Now, here's our second question, and another important question. Who's your least favorite character?
And so
Oh.
now the one that goes in, I'll give you guys a good warm-up question to think about it.
I have one already.
But the one that hits this,
I have one already.
the one that hits this podcast regularly, I think that's the only thing we ever totally agree on, and it's Firestorm is a great character to draw, but there are very few Firestorm stories that are like possible to read that you're not like, oh, forget about this. I just can't do it anymore. So
He's such
a visually cool character.
Visually he's amazing, but otherwise he's a lame character.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of.
Visually he's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I've got one worse.
Okay, go for it.
I got one a lot worse.
Okay.
Derek, you probably remember the '90s days when Derek and I go way back. Actually, we used to draw on the back of one of our buddies' comic book stores. And one of the things that some of my friends used to do, we circle around and we'd make fun of Shaft from Youngblood.
Okay.
And just because he was such a meaningless character, the way Rob Liefeld drew it, I think we made fun of the fact that even the way he wrote him in the books, he just had no character whatsoever. It was just lamest.
Is that the guy with the brown things on the side on his?
No, that's Prophet. I was referring to.
He's basically the Green Arrow of the Image universe.
Oh,
yes. Okay, I don't know who that is.
He has a bow that has. I'm not sure how it works. Actually, Derek explained it to me. It has some sort of anti-gravity thing going on. But he has a bow that he shoots that has no string to it. It's just him dropping bombs, and it's just ridiculous. I think he's one of the worst design characters.
Okay, I have no idea who this character is, so we'll put a picture of him up.
Okay.
Or like, sit to the side, old man, let the young people talk.
Oh, he was just, it was an awful character. And the design, Go ahead, Derek.
I actually didn't mind the design on, Shaft. There was a lot of Youngblood characters, but no, for me, and you probably remember this, I used to rag on the Darkness a lot. I thought it was initially a cool design. No, well, let me back up. Awesome visual.
No, that's okay.
Awesome visual, but I felt like the visual, he looked like he was going to be more of a cyber type character, because his design looked like more battle armor instead of and it was bright green and yellow stuff, and then the character itself went into supernatural kind of morbid stuff, but he's looking like a rejected Cyberforce design. It's kind of,
wow.
I can see why you're saying that, though, for sure.
No, but that's where I'm conflicted, because the design itself, it's a cool looking design. I thought, all right, well, Mark Silvestri was doing his cyborg hybrid super stuff, and then this was in that transition into supernatural stuff, and the stories, because the earlier stories were done by Garth Ennis, and when you want dark and disturbing Yeah, like
Oh,
dark,
wow.
disturbing Garth Ennis stories with Mark Silvestri art. Like, there's nothing wrong
Yep.
with that at all. But
Well, was the
like you've got
stories
these
and the
like
art good in
you
those
got
books?
these horror.
Go ahead.
They were all right, but it was still like a cut above what was going on, like typical writing in Top Cow, to get those Garth Ennis stories, like that dark humor. But again, you have this like dark kind of gothic setup, but the character looks like he could have fit in on like Cyberforce or Youngblood. So it's kind of weird. I thought the design was cool, but I thought it was weird for the type of stories and the type of world that was being created for this character. If that makes sense.
That's actually a really important point to make as
Yeah.
comic book creators. The fact that, you know, like maybe we don't think about it that much, but the idea of like you really, there can be a great design for a character, but not for that story. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think
Yeah.
about that much in comic book creating,
Yeah.
which is that's like a really profound point on that. That, you know, when you're designing your characters, make sure they fit in your story, because if they don't, it can actually sort of, as Derek pointed out, it's like it actually kind of ruined the story for him. Like the story's good, the character design's good, but together it's just not working.
It just doesn't work. Yeah.
That's
It's
interesting.
like having a couple of breakfast things that you like, couple breakfast things you like, but you don't like them on the same meal at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm actually just quite shocked that you would pick Darkness. That's an interesting.
I remember looking at the
observation.
Darkness books, but to be honest, at that time, never read much Image books.
Yeah, that was my big go-to growing up. So everything was Image. I don't think I went outside of that often. So
Yeah. So that.
as I got older, I think Derek, you would. I started running out of things to read because Image wasn't putting out stuff that was accommodating to me. But I think Derek opened up my collection and interest and got me reading like Daredevil and Catwoman.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah,
I remember that
I love
because that was
Brubaker's-
like, yeah, because that Marvel era, that was when they were getting guys like Brian Michael Bendis to do Daredevil, and Alex Maleev was the artist, and that was
Brubaker.
such a
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
and that was such a far departure from like what was considered art in a mainstream like comic back then. Like they were starting to get outside of house style and starting to kind of experiment in those early 2000s, and Daredevil was
Back
one
when-
of those
Yeah,
one of those
Posada
books,
was
so-
running
Okay,
the show.
I'm gonna show my age now. You know, they did that in the '80s. Come on, guys. Right, Chris? We're showing our age now.
You know what? Actually, I'll be honest. I came up like I actually, when I was working at I worked at a comic book shop for a while, and that was when Image was starting up. So I actually bit into the Image apple a little bit and into the sort of that later stuff a little bit. Like I still read comic books, you know, after the death of Superman, and but I agree. It's like the thing is, when you get older, you tend to notice the ups and downs of comic books, like where they recycle a story-ish and then bring it back.
They
It's
do.
like, you know, if it isn't a past Robin coming back, it's a new Robin that's related to somebody. You know.
But see, with comics, I love McFarlane. I bought his Hulk, I bought his Spider-Mans, but when he came on to Spawn, I had zero interest for some reason. Or just like maybe I was out of his phase, you know. But I bought all his books prior to that because I loved his artwork.
Yeah.
Spawn just didn't interest me.
I wasn't.
That's where I.
That's fair.
I was gonna say.
That's where I actually jumped on to.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry,
I was
Chris.
gonna say I was never into Spawn, but there was so much more coming out of Image at the time. I was a huge Sam Keith, like the Max, as far as Image comic
Oh,
goes.
yes, that's
the
right.
Max for me is just like the greatest comic book series, one of the greatest comic book series ever written. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
So
Chris, I love the Max.
Yeah.
I have this big art book of the Max. Did you ever get that? Actually, Derek had one of Savage Dragon, but it's like a giant size art book of all the original pages of the Max, and it's done by 11 by 17.
Oh wow, nice.
It's a format book.
Yeah,
but
this was my
Sam Keith. You
This was my splurge.
can't.
Wow.
last year.
Oh,
Exactly.
wow.
So I have a
Like,
I have a book equivalent to that, but it's the Max.
I
and it's
will.
all like, and it's all these raw artwork, not touched up. Like you could see the whiteout marks, the pencil scratches.
Now,
The
mentioning Savage Dragon, Larson, did he switch to digital or is he still old school?
He did. He there was one issue where he decided to do digital. Like he tried digital, kind of got it out of his system, and then has gone back to traditional.
Because I remember years ago reading something about him, and he said he was still old school, so I wasn't sure if he switched or not.
He switched. He switched for because he does a lot of like different things. For a lot of years, he was using larger paper, what he called twice up. I guess it was more along the size that Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko were using for their artwork back in the '60s.
Oh, was
So
that
he
like
was
12 by 18 or something like that?
something like
much-
that. Yeah. So he was
Yeah.
So he was using paper like that for the longest time, and then he kind of got to a point where he kind of ran out of that paper, so he decided he was going to draw how many ever issues he could with whatever paper he had left around the house. Like, so a bunch of like 9 by 12 or 11 by 14,
Oh,
just
wow.
whatever he had around the house. And then just very recently, I think the last year, I think it was when I was starting to collect Dragon like floppies again. I stopped when I was laid off, and my life kind of happened. Got married, had a baby, and just the comic store I was getting these books from kind of closed down. Once I got back from my job from being laid off for about 4.5 years and was able to start getting comics again, I bought all the Dragon back issues I was missing through Comixology, because before they got bought out by Amazon, you could buy back issues for $2, or if there was a Christmas sale, which Dragon loved to do, back issues were 99 cents.
Oh, nice.
So like it's like I know digital isn't always everyone's preferred, but I like I wasn't collecting Dragon for the back issue stock market kind of setup. I genuinely enjoy the books, so I'll read them in any format that I can get. But
So what issue is Savage Dragon on now?
276.
Oh, so he hasn't hit 300 yet. Okay, I wasn't sure.
Not yet.
Just a few issues shy of.
Okay.
Yeah, he's there's been some hiccups in the time frame for a while there. Like since I started collecting again, he there was about 10 years ago he was also, while doing Dragon, he was also doing an arc on Spawn with Todd McFarlane, which is the last Spawn I picked up. Like Spawn was a book I dropped after issue 100, and just like, all right, you know what, this seems like a good time to dip out. But I checked back from time to time, and I thought, oh, Eric Larson and Todd McFarlane teaming up on Spawn? Great, it only lasted 6 issues. They couldn't work together well, apparently.
One thing I do have to give credit to Larson is, at least, I think I've read one Spawn book. I mean, one Savage Dragon book, or 1 or 2 books. But I have to give him credit saying he lasted all those issues, and it's all him. Basically, It's not like Spawn where McFarlane has, other writers, other artists on it.
Or like TikTok Tom.
At least with... Which one?
TikTok Tom.
Never heard of it.
No, but he's...
my favorite issue.
Chetan's right. Eric is not that far off from meeting and then exceeding the Dave Sim Cerebus on Dave Sim's own rules. So that's exciting. And
there's one artist who's actually almost achieved that as well, who doesn't get a whole lot of heat, which he should, is Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
He's almost at 300. Yeah. He's at 283, I think.
Okay, so he's another one, and Right, I wasn't aware of that. I thought there were I thought Usagi Yojimbo for some reason was a series of miniseries, kind of like Hellboy, or if we're talking '90s, like Shadowhawk.
Well,
But it's
he's managed to keep his legendary number. Yes, he's gone to many publishers, but he's always kept the same count up.
And now Chris is
That
going to
makes
answer
sense,
this
yeah.
one. Chris, we had this talk. He was the letterer on Gru, right? Or was he the? He was the letterer on Gru.
Yeah, he did some lettering on early Gru issues.
No, I think he did
Really?
from a start to end, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, they're all connected. Sergio Organis and
Yeah.
Mark Evanier.
Stan Sakai. Yeah, Mark Evanier and Stan
No, but
Sakai.
Stan Sakai and Larson, I have to give him credit for sticking with their book.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
and not letting anyone hand it off.
And
That's-
Larson too.
and not handing it off
Yeah.
to
I mean,
anyone else.
and it's-
That's
no-
an important thing.
Nothing against McFarlane, but I know McFarlane was saying, Spawn's past 300 and he's going on about, how long it's lasted, but technically he's not on it, So,
No.
So, more kudos to the other two guys. Mark, you're new to Geek Shop.
Yes,
Tell
I
us a
am.
little about yourself.
Okay, well, I started drawing comics actually alongside Derek, back in, I want to say, 96. I started really
little
putting
before.
Yeah, a little before actually. I started putting together my own comic book at a very early age. My love for comics was great, so I fell in love with the art form. I did a lot of sketching as a kid, and then throughout the years, I came up with different ideas. We did. I think we spent about, Derek and I spent about 4 or 5 years doing zines, like
nice.
little formatted magazines.
Chris, number two people we could talk about zines with now.
And
Yep.
we did this right up until almost college, and then I joined a couple of artists in Toronto, Bright Amble. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chrono Wars comics. So coming out of college, I got brought on to Bright Amble. I was doing some side work for them for a little bit, and then there was a small window where I kind of quit comics for a little bit, and then I joined a collective out in Toronto called Spent Pencils, where I drew with them for like 6 years. So I've never stopped drawing comics. And I got
Nice.
I have my own published comic as well, Little Dragonfly. It only lasted for an issue, but I actually am sitting on a full issue of that. I'd like to go back and revisit at some point. Yeah. But,
And we're going to talk to you. Chris and I have been talking about doing another episode on zines. And, we did one episode, what was it, our first episode, right, Chris?
Yep. Our first episode was about zines.
Yeah, so
Oh, that's
we
cool.
want to
Oh,
go
yeah.
back to it.
So,
we want
yeah.
to go back to
Yeah.
it and definitely have you guys on. And do you still have your zines, Derek
do.
and Mark?
I
I
do.
think-
I'm not sure if Derek
yeah.
does, but I definitely.
You actually
I
gave
def-
me a couple of copies. There was one, I was missing a few from my set. I had a copy of the one I drew for you, which is god awful.
Yeah.
I've got it on my Patreon page. I scanned it all in, but it was basically we created Mark, our
whole
friend
universe.
Peter, and I created essentially we created Stripperella before Stripperella was out. Delilah.
Delilah, yeah. Yeah, I came up with the idea for this character,
And
Delilah, and I kind of ran out of material, so I gave it to Derek to fill in the pages. I was like, I don't know
And
what to do
it
with this
was-
character.
Okay, let's not go in too much into detail on this. We'll do it on our zine episode.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
perfect.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So, and are you working on? What are you working on right now?
Myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm working on a new book, brand new book, actually. I got a new writer. Are you guys familiar with Chris Wonderlit?
Yes.
A local magazine. He's writing a new book with me. Here's a shot of the cover for his new
Awesome.
magazine.
Oh, nice.
The book is titled Game Girl, and it's about a a character, like a dummy character that goes into video games, and she multiverses. She goes from one universe to the next, trying to. There's these rifts that are created that are being torn apart, going from the reality into video game world. So she goes in and out of these rifts to pull these video game characters back into the video game world. It's cool. Yeah.
That's
nice.
very cool.
Yeah, it's very thought through. So we're hoping to have it launched by the summer. So.
Oh wow!
Awesome.
Nice.
We look forward to it.
Yeah,
You'll have to let us know when you get it launched, and we'll have you back on again for that as well.
Absolutely, and yeah, just to add, the magazine is actually coming up next month, and we're doing a preview of the book in the latest issue of Wonderland magazine.
Awesome. Very cool.
Oh, nice.
And
nice.
yeah. And Derek, what are you working on lately?
Right now, I am still in the middle of our next TikTok Tom story, Maneater. Mark and I, for whatever reasons, we got a couple of extra stories to draw out. So I've been still.
I nicely asked him if he could draw an extra story. I didn't use any. Chris, I didn't use any goons or force. I asked him nicely.
He's so used goons.
Yeah,
They're
but
still
now you are
outside
turning
my
into
house.
Todd McFarlane.
Yeah. And they all talk
No
like
cement shoes
Todd
were
McFarlane.
involved.
Where's my comic, bud? But yeah, I'm still.
I should have added. Yeah, I was doing some work on. I just finished up. Actually, I'm on the last page.
Yeah.
Of,
I've just started.
Yeah, Chris.
I've just started.
Chris, I came to their doors with a baseball bat.
Yeah. You guys all think I moved to Southeast Asia for my wife's job or whatever, but actually I moved just to get further away from Stan so that way he can't actually knock on my door and ask me for work.
I'm still working. Like I ended up just back and forth. This was a bit of a different experience for me. I've been with TikTok Tom for 5 years now, coming up to 5 years. So the first 4 stories,
wow.
Yeah, Chetan just gave me a 2-word theme, like so what, or we're doing gorillas, or we're doing romance, or we're doing or a genre, and then kind of let me go nuts for those first 4 years in full color. It's where I introduced Molitor to the mix, and what I thought was a one-off character I've spun out into a thing. And Mullet's maybe making a comeback at my work now. I don't want to say I'm responsible, but I might have had something to do with it. But the last couple of stories for the black and white, I've got to... Chetan was the writer and I was the artist, and Chetan just basically gave me a few plot points and gave me layouts. And again, because Chetan's a great artist and a storyteller in his own right, those were easy. I just kind of follow along, and if there was something I could add, or maybe another way I could look at a panel, but it was very few and far between. But Mark and I can attest, this time we were given a full plot script story by Derek the Destroyer over at Worlds Collide, and that was a different approach that's taking me a bit to kind of wrap my head around. Nothing wrong with his approach at all. It's just I kind of got spoiled with my early attempts at publishing stories. Like I went from being able to do what you want, use the theme so what, or we're just doing gorillas, go with it.
Chris, this goes back to what we were talking about in one of our previous episodes, how you write a script, where we had different methods, and the latest script I was given, it was more in a Marvel plot style.
And can I add to this?
Yeah.
It was funny because when I got the script from Derek, I looked at it and I'm like, I've never done anything like this before. So I messaged Chet right away and I said, Chet, buddy, I don't know what I could do with this. I've never done anything. And he told me, this is another industry accepted script. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? So
it on our episode where we talked about it, and some people want the freedom of having a plot so they could, like Tom Yo's a person who could take a plot and do something different with it. Some people want more structured. So I think each artist is different.
Yeah.
And we talked about this in detail in our previous episode with Chris.
I don't know.
It's interesting to hear to be shocked by it. Like, so if you have a system that you've been using so much, and then suddenly get the other one, you're like, what am I doing here? So
I found that
it's probably a good reason why a lot of Marvel artists stay at Marvel and a lot of DC artists stay at DC, because the plotting, like the Marvel method, is just so sort of, here's a rough story, draw it, then we'll put in the words.
Which is true, because I remember reading interviews with artists when they went from Marvel to DC. They said they weren't given the freedom they were given at Marvel because the writer told them exactly what to draw.
Yeah. And so I imagine you had the similar situation, like going from Marvel to DC, where it's like, oh my God, what's this new type of thing, and how am I supposed to interpret this? And
Yeah.
you can definitely see that being a shock.
More or less, but I'm not going to say it was restrictive. I had a few ideas myself going through the story, like nothing significant, like just little dumb things. We have a character named Brow, who is a pretty big guy, so I couldn't keep to scale. So the first story I drew with I drew him really big, but the motorcycle is in scale, so he has like a really small motorcycle. So I thought it'd just be funny if he was just too big for everything around him. Without giving away too much, the next story we have Brow in involves him stealing a panel van, like a moving van. And little story bit I added was he's too tall, and I was watching the Police Academy movies that weekend, so I thought, you know what, he's going to rip the front seat out of the van, and he's going to be sitting all the way to the back. And because Brow has a like a unicorn horn out of the top of his head, that horn actually punctured the top of the van and actually is sliced.
Oh, that's amazing!
That's awesome.
Oh, that's amazing!
Without going in, but
was pretty emotional.
But I added like little things like that, which on the downside is I added a bit to my page count, so what was supposed to be my 10-page maximum story is now 15 pages. Just adding dumb stuff like that, even like early on, because our lead character in this story is a woman that came out of the 1920s era. Instead of having an iPhone or a regular phone, I gave her like that old school like landline with the dial that she contacts her hench people through.
That's a sweet panel. The way they drew that.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, you guys.
We had to do it. We had to do an episode on what we're working on our latest book and stuff, and get everyone talking about it. Now it's going to be more of a detailed episode.
Oh yeah,
that's very cool though. I like the preview.
So Chris, any final words?
These guys, it's interesting because these guys have a very. I mean, I think they're younger than you and I, particularly you, and so they have a different take on what comics they really were.
But I
into,
did learn something new. I want to check out that Simon Beasley Ninja Turtles book now.
Oh yeah,
that's cool.
It's called Body Count. It's actually it
And-
even
Yeah,
have the title of turtles on it.
Also, I love Garth Ennis, so I mean, I do want to check out Darkness, but then from what you and Chris said, I'm like, should I check it out? So
It's so
there's
long.
I'd say give it a
Yeah.
shock,
Give it a
or give it a
read.
look.
yeah.
It may pleasantly surprise you
It's not
because,
even that bad.
like I
It's
said,
just
my
the
initial
design is a
vibe.
little busy.
Yeah, my initial design was
Okay.
this guy looks like the 13th member of Cyberforce, and then you actually get the book, it's like, oh, there's a lot more to it. So,
Yeah.
but it
it's,
kind of had that right.
Okay, so I
story
have
point.
2 new books I need to look for now.
Body Count
I
in
think-
Darkness.
Those interesting.
Dynamic.
Although both image books, right?
Yeah, they're both image.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And-
so there you go.
Oh, there
Okay,
was some
that's-
controversy
see,
with
we-
those Darkness too. Those early Darkness. I don't. Mark, you'll probably remember this better than me. Were those early Darkness still Image? Because there was a stretch where Mark Sylvester, like a month where Mark Sylvester
No,
was out
okay.
of
What
Image.
happened? believe it or not, Derek, yeah, there was that short period of time which lasted like 4 months, where Top Cow decided to break away from Image.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, but the thing is, no matter what those like 4 months were like, that Image Eye is still on all their books. So
Okay.
it was still published, but what had happened was Mark Silvestri decided to pull away from the identity of Image. He didn't really break from Image. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, that was the whole Rob Liefeld
Trying to
Mark
pill for Mike
Silvestri.
Turner.
Yeah, that was a whole.
Yeah,
scenario
honestly, the
there.
history of Image deserves a soap opera itself.
Could I add to something before we end up?
Yeah, go for it. Sure.
I wanted to say to everybody out there who are coming up on the end of the month, where some of the TikTok Tom guys are going up to a show at 8-Bit Beans at the end of the month. doing a
Oh,
show.
yes, that's it. Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, if you guys are in Whitby area, drop it by 8-Bit Beans and come see Derek and myself and a couple of others.
Why don't we put up a image of that thing up here?
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
No, don't worry. We'll put up an image on
Oh, okay.
here.
I'll send you a poster. But I mean,
Yep.
if you guys are in the area, check us out. And I mean,
So if I remember, it's you, Derek, Fox, Lang, Chris Wunderlich's there also,
yeah,
right?
Chris Wunderlich
Yeah.
and Derek's buddy Jerome, I think his
Jerome.
name is. Yeah.
Jerome
yeah,
Cabanatan,
so-
he's very big in the indie scene in Ajax. In that cartoonist kayfabe vein.
So.
Oh,
yeah.
nice. Okay. So a
Yeah.
lot of good local
Local
people.
talent.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
actually worked with Katie, who is the owner of the 8-Bit Beans. I'm putting on the event itself, so her and I have been coordinating to get as many artists together and
Oh, nice.
have her own little
Awesome.
mini con, a little artist alley there. So it'll be fun.
Oh, thank you for
Awesome.
that.
No worries. In fact, that's why I was trying to get you out there too, Chet.
Yes. No. Unfortunately, it's just bad timing. Next time, definitely.
for sure.
Yes.
Awesome. So why don't you wrap this up?
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you, Mark. Thank you, Derek.
I look forward to doing
And-
it again.
Yes, and we'll see you guys later. And enjoy your day. And thank you for joining us on Geek Shop.
Take care of yourselves.
Thanks for having us.